60 feet down. This was the moment I'd been anticipating for ages. My first dive into the warm, tropical waters off the coast of Grand Cayman. Growing up, I was fascinated by Alvin the submarine and the brave men and women who explored the depths of the oceans. Jacques Cousteau, as he brought to our television a glimpse of this mysterious place on our planet called the ocean. Here, the crystal clear waters are so very different from the lakes back in Canada. The color, the ability to see more than 10 feet in front of you. And everything I saw brought a sense of wonder in my eyes. From coral growing on the guide ropes to the bubbles rising from those who dove around me. The closer the bottom came, the more the magic wore off. What I'd been looking for all these months of preparation and training just wasn't there. Television had lied to me. Or maybe I was just too late. Instead of all the colors of the rainbow, teeming schools of fish, all that was left for me to see here was a few outcrops of coral, barely clinging on to life, and a handful of creatures from under the waves. What is left behind might be fine for someone on vacation who takes a spur-of-the-moment dive, but this wasn't the world that I'd been dreaming of. Industrialization of the human world causing acidification of the ocean, destroying corals that have been living and growing for thousands of years. Pollution has decimated the fish numbers, introduced species, wreaking havoc on the ecosystem. And what's left behind in the wake of human advancements is a depressing wasteland that was once the playground of nature. What have we done? Divers of all types brave these waters and waters all over our planets, each looking to go under the water, hoping to find something special with each dive. Some simply go down there with nothing but a breath of air in their lungs, hoping to go as long as their endurance will allow them. Others take a more casual approach, strapping a tank on their back, diving leisurely, swimming amongst plants and animals they find down there. Some, like myself, strap on as many tanks as they can, hoping to extend their time and depth as much as possible. Immersed under the waves, we each find ourselves at the mercy of an alien and possibly hostile environment that surrounds us on all sides. Mistakes can be dangerous, in some cases even deadly. And yet each of us goes down there knowing full well what could happen. Each of us seeks to experience that underwater world in a unique and special way. I don't know of anybody who's gone diving more than once and not been changed by the experience of what they find there. I think it's safe to assume that anyone who has taken up a passion for scuba diving has developed a closeness and an affinity for the environment that they find there. It is, after all, the reason why we take such efforts to go to such a dangerous place. When divers go under the water, they're searching for something special, something unique. Whether it's a once-in-a-lifetime dive off the coast of some tropical islands, or just an every other weekend dive in their local lake or river. The awe and wonder of seeing nature up close and personal always brings about something special to each of us. Of course, getting to explore a Spanish galleon or other shipwreck under the water can be an amazing thing, but it's not really what we're always searching for. But I do know that no diver wants to go under the water and find mounds of old beer bottles and pop cans, the debris and litter that comes from the surface. Project Aware for the last 25 years has been an ambassador for clean waters, The Dive Against Debris program that they run increases in size every year, with more than 60,000 divers swimming and cleaning up across more than 114 countries around the world. Each makes a small impact on the environment that we see. In the book A Good War, Seth Klein tells us that passively waiting for people to change their mind about the climate crisis just isn't working. That we need some sort of government-mandated and managed program in order to force people to change their minds. One key topic that he brings up there is changing the hearts and minds of people. In World War II, I'm sure some people will remember Rosie the Riveter and those posters that brought about patriotic fervor, allowing the government to change the way people thought about supporting the war. In 2015, research divers off the coast of Costa Rica rescued a sea turtle. Many of you have probably seen this horrific video as they extract a plastic straw from the nose of the turtle. As a result of millions of views of this one incident, how much has changed in our world? How many countries are banning plastic straws and single-use plastic? If you dive off the end of this pier and go straight out, about 5 minutes, you're going to find a stop sign sitting on the bottom of the lake. For local divers, this is the start and stop of most of the dives here. Following along, you'll find a path that leads to landmarks that have been created over the years. Local divers know of the 40-foot boat and the 60-foot boat, the flamingo forest, and many other places of note as they swim around there on their regular times. Local dive shops bring their classes here to experience the open water for themselves. A little special event as they find the Halloween coffin that someone dropped into the lake years ago, complete with a plastic skeleton inside. At some point it might have been refuge. It's now part of the aquatic environments, providing refuge and a place of comfort for the animals that are down there. If you head over towards Barrie, following the coast of Lake Simcoe, you'll eventually come to Centennial Beach. Just off the coast, if you dive, you'll find the wreck of the J.C. Morrison, a steam-powered paddle boat that sank in 1857 after catching fire. All that's left of it now is the paddle wheel, the steam engine, and a few of the larger parts of the ship's skeleton. These too become part of the aquatic environments. Inside the holes created by the paddle wheel, you'll find bass and perch taking refuge, making a home. What humans bring to the world under the waves isn't just the trash and refuse we toss into the water, hoping the currents will drift away the unwanted from us. Most scuba divers begin learning in a swimming pool where the water is clear and the environment controlled. And only after learning and mastering the basics are they allowed to go out into the open waters that nature provides us. On my first open water dive, the instructor told us we were going to dive the site of a plane wreck. All of us who came along thought this would be the most amazing thing, our first open water dive, and we get to see a wreck on the bottom of the lake. Unfortunately, when we got there, the wreck was so overgrown with zebra mussels, it was almost indistinguishable from the rocks surrounding it. Other than a slightly round lump, you would never know what it really was. Zebra and quagga mussels were introduced to Canadian waters in the late 80s, most likely from international freighters to which they were attached or floating in bilge water which was dumped into our waters. And as with many invasive species, these crustaceans have few, if any, predators, and they've flourished in our waters. They've since taken over many lakes and have caused untold amounts of damage as they deplete food sources and overrun spawning grounds of native species. Even human industry is affected by these creatures. The buildup of shells as they multiply clogs water inlets and outlets critical to the safe operation of factories. Locks and dams, hydroelectric power plants all affected likewise. Even our nuclear power stations, which rely on a steady stream of water to cool the reactors, can be threatened by this invasion. The brown waters of Lake Muskoka, though, are a different story. Stained dark not from human pollution, but from tannins which leach out of the dead leaves in the oak forest which surround it. Some divers describe diving here as like swimming in a cold cup of really strong tea. These literally dark waters of Lake Muskoka are a natural deterrent to zebra mussels which plague nearby waters. The darkness prevents most of the algae growth, which is their primary food source. Dark as these waters are, they are one of the few places in this area where you can explore an almost pristine shipwreck. Although the Wyoming sunk during a storm in 1934, it still looks today almost the same as when it first went down nearly 100 years ago. You can still see the planks which form the top deck. The memorial plaque on the wheelhouse is still readable, and paint still clings to the old wood in places. One could almost imagine bringing this old ship back to life. Almost. The Wyoming is one of many wrecks in Ontario waters. There are more than 500 shipwrecks in Ontario. Many are protected by law as heritage sites. These laws prevent visitors from damaging the sites, removing artifacts, and protecting our history for generations to come. Unfortunately, many sites have become overgrown with zebra mussels to the point that they are unrecognizable now. And we are left with old photos and the stories of divers to tell the story of what was found at the bottom of our lakes. Where do we go now? One of the first lessons every scuba diver learns is that their safety is their own responsibility. While this may seem to lead to a certain selfish behavior, part of a diver's safety is their dive buddy. New divers are taught never to dive alone, to always have somebody nearby as a backup. Diving may seem to outsiders as a solitary sport because people are unable to talk and communicate in the ways that we've learned since childhood. But new ways of communication are learned to make up for this. Part of Project Aware's diving against debris, obviously, is picking up litter and debris found underwater. Related to this is a second task, to collect information on what was found and removed, how much, where it was found. This information is collected and it becomes part of a conversation with the rest of the world, building convincing arguments that lead towards change. Just as divers learn new ways to communicate with one another under the water, new ways to communicate, to express what is happening to our planet, need to be learned. Project Aware estimates that over 60,000 divers have participated in cleanup dives around the world. But even if 10 times as many people went out to clean the oceans, and did so each and every day, it would likely barely scratch the surface of the problem that exists. The rate of pollution which enters our waters is far greater than that which we remove. But the example shown by these who try leads the way towards change. In the face of such odds, why do divers continue to try and clean the oceans, to show others where human activity has impacted the environment? Why do they try to make a difference? It is because if they don't, if nobody does, then nothing will ever change, and it will only be a matter of time before it is too late. Unlike the creatures who are harmed by our actions, humans do not rely on instinct to guide them. The use of logic and reason, compassion and justice have long since replaced those primal drives. Humans have the ability to make choices. But why haven't we already chosen to make a change? It is not always easy to change what we do, though. There's a certain comfort in most of our lives, and change in some ways threatens that. For some, it's a lack of information. Others still, it's overcoming false or misleading information. And as disappointing as it may sound, there are still a great number of people who just do not know that there is a problem. But there is still hope. I think that's what inspires people to share their stories. Hope that not only is this problem still able to be fixed, that we can change the course of this climate crisis, but more than that, hope that people will hear and choose.